If I was looking into a crystal ball and trying to visualise the Lough in 20 years' time, I'm a fisherman, so I look at it and what I can see is a Lough healthy, clean, with fish and fishermen, and that's what I can say. From 14 years of age, and I was still at school, bear in mind at that age, I was fishing full-time commercially with my father. So all that he knew and garnished from his father and my great-grandfather and so on back, the trades were just handed down generation after generation after generation to me. So I'm very thankful and grateful that we had those people on the Lough shore that were fit to gift us with the art of fishing on Lough today. I can remember standing in the front of the boat with my cousin and my uncle and my father. So if that's a memory that I never lost, then this was probably something even then that I was always going to do. And it's something that really, to remove it, you'd have to pull it from the soul. So I don't believe it's not possible to take that out of me, no. So in short, I was never going to do anything else. You see, every generation brought on its own story. So if you go back to this lady's time in the Lough, Sally Ann Murphy, so that's come back. Sally Ann was born in 1848, which is right into the heart of the Great Hunger, a hard time in Ireland. She lived to way over 100 years of age, so she came out of really hard times, but made the most of it. But you go back 100 years to whenever she was gathering fish off these very shores to sell in market towns like Ballinasgreen. Those were really hard times because that was a period of time in the Lough when people couldn't fish on it at all. So the British aristocracy put an end to that, and people, I guess, had to keep going. There was no other alternative. So that generation got it really tough. I suppose this generation saw the emergence, so that's my grandfather here, going from these very tough times of not being allowed to fish to setting up a cooperative and all the work that it took to get that underway. And then to my father's time, who enjoyed with the work and the hardship that came before. They enjoyed it and we enjoy it still today. So every generation has its own story to tell, and so do we. So we're facing into a time of big change in the Lough by way of pollution and stuff. So the challenges that these generations had and were fit to overcome, the one that we're facing into today is one that's going to be much harder for us to take on ourselves. The biggest change on the Lough that I have seen over the years by far is pollution. Pollution on the Lough is such a crime. And did we tumble into this by accident? No, we didn't. I don't feel we did. And there's a number of factors we could look at, like farming on a bigger scale, and water with no money towards helping their infrastructure. There are a whole lot of things going on that we have no control over. So the biggest change by far on the Lough that I have seen is pollution. So when did we notice that things weren't right? So if you think about this year, 2025, and you think about the whole hullabaloo and the international world looked upon Lough now whenever it turned green, rightly so. But did we see it long before that? Absolutely we did. Like we seen it maybe 10, maybe even 15 years before. We've seen the downturn starting to come in. And how did we read that? Well, the best way to read anything is let nature do the talking. And our Lough fly is a critical element whenever it comes to food source for our fish. And we can start to see it starting to disappear. So around these shores here, around them trees on a nice warm evening, you'd have had swarms and swarms of flies. I could have sat here and you could have heard them and listened to them. And that has disappeared. It's not gone, but it has disappeared in a way that I remember it. So that's a very visual thing for us on the Lough shore here. That's something we can point to and say there's something not right under the water whenever our food source for our fish that you can see or should be fit to see is disappearing. There's no question the Lough's in trouble. Like if you stop and think about 2023 and how the Lough literally turned green, and on quays like we have here, if you had a wind blowing in and blowing the green algae in, and then it got stuck, there was quays that was a foot thick. Just try and picture it, a foot thick. So out of that, like, you know, you can't have a fresh water lake in that sort of state. So is it in trouble by way of too much nutrient, too much phosphorus on it? It is. And we need that to change. So if my father or our grandfather were here today and seen the state of Lough now and the state that mankind has put it in, simply they'd be fucking raging. There's no question about that. They'd be disappointed to think that mankind has allowed this to happen to a state that it is, you know, by way of pollution. I mean, I think they'd be very disappointed. I want people to understand this way of life, or look at it through our eyes, I suppose, because we as a community around the Lough shore have been the custodians of the Lough. Whenever nobody else was here, we were here. And if you think about, and we've been here for generations and generations, for hundreds of years. I mean, like the first settlement of fisher people was some 9,000, 10,000 years ago, so, and we're still here yet. So if people are looking at us and wondering what it's all about, you know, I would say just there's a real love for the area and the Lough itself. For sure, it's not one we would change.